Gentlemen and lady, welcome to yet another episode of the BMX show. It's good to be here. So today, basically, we're joined by a well-decorated person. She dances, she sings, she's a poet, she's an author. I mean, what is it that she can't do?
True Renaissance lady.
So she's multifaceted, and it's good. It's an honor to actually have her here. Help me welcome, gentlemen, Grace.
Welcome, Grace.
Thank you. Thank you for having me,
Please
guys.
grace us with your
Thank
presence.
You, thank you.
Grace, it's an honor to host you today. We've been trying, and we've recently had our success, and we're not gonna waste no more time.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are actually itching to hear from you. So Grace, tell us about you. And you've got some presents for us here as well. So why don't you just maybe put it on the screen for people to actually see?
Oh, my little gifts.
Of course.
So these are my. Before I even introduce myself, I'm already like, hi, these are my books for sale. But these are my books. I have 3 books out currently.
Mhm.
We'll talk a little bit more about this maybe
Sure.
later. But these are the little gifts that I brought just to talk about today.
I like the cover.
You have to plug yourself. You need to give props and tap yourself on the back and let people know there's things happening. Exactly.
3 books, guys.
Yeah.
3.
So one thing I actually left out is your profession.
Yes.
So you also teach, which is very, very fascinating as well, because it seems very difficult to understand from outside looking in how you actually juggle all these things.
Yeah,
that's true.
I also don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out. But yeah, I wear many hats. I like to put it that way. But if I could summarize, I'm a performance artist. And even my sort of profession as a teacher, I'm teaching performance. So I don't like to call it's my profession. I feel like it's just like my life.
It's your passion, basically.
Yeah, and I get to live that out and pass it on to others. So that's what makes it fulfilling, I guess, for me. But yeah, that's what I do.
That's an interesting take. And we also have here the usual suspects. They've hardly said a word. So, gentlemen, it's good to have you here. I'm sure we have a lot of questions for Grace, but welcome as well.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Welcome to you as well. It's good to be back, guys. By the way, we're shooting at a new location today. I don't know
Saint Tropez,
where is this located again?
Jackal Creek Corner. That's where we're at. North side.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, Grace, performance art, what does that entail actually? Like, are you a dance teacher, drama, acting? Because I need some lessons, and I know Brian also needs some tips.
Well, let me define performance artist
Please.
first. So
Yes,
performance
please.
artist is someone who combines all forms of art. So you have like a performer, and then you have performance, right? So performance art combines from visual arts to dance to theater to everything. So that's why I say I'm a performance artist, because I incorporate a lot of elements from my poetry to my dancing to my singing to my music and all of that. So that's basically the big difference. And so I do everything.
Yeah.
I just don't play an instrument. That's the one thing I cannot do. I used to
this
play the
moment.
piano, but then I
Oh,
stopped.
Oh,
So at some point, if I maybe continued, I'd have been the perfect all-rounder. But so right now, I'm like a poet, as you mentioned. I'm a poet, I'm a writer, I'm a dancer, I sing, I'm an actress, teacher as well. Yeah.
And how does a lesson in like your maybe the average daily lesson, would it combine all those the facets, or do you have them like separated, whereby you have like your visual arts in the one day and your
I mean, it depends what you're looking for. But if I can describe a typical day in my class, so I would teach drama separately, and then I teach dance separate, and then I teach visual arts separate. But somehow I find ways to incorporate. I do feel like they all speak to each other.
Definitely.
You can't, I mean,
Have the
even
one
with
without the
acting,
other.
there's the body that's involved.
Yeah.
So like that's movement, that's
Yeah.
dance. So I like to sort of, even if I teach drama, include the element of movement and with my learners. So it's not so much like, okay, I'm gonna teach you how to dance and then like show you moves and that's it. I really go to like the core of things to make you understand how the body moves, why the body moves, because that's where you really learn. It's not just doing 1, 2, 3, 4 and then cool, I got the movement, but like teaching what's the concept of body memory. For instance, if you're doing dance, it's like your body actually remembers things. The body has a mind of its own.
So reflexes, like.
Yes, so your lesson with me is not just, you know, slapstick and then we move on. So depending on what you want to learn and like how good you want to get.
At a foundation level first.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not like, I mean, I teach dance class as well, like every other weekend, but that's just like, I'm teaching you a set choreography. Then you learn the dance and you move on with life. But if you want a more intense, long-term lesson, like I really go into like the depth of theory. I don't want to say theory because that's boring and no one really likes theory, but theory is important in terms of I take the theory and I make it practical so that it makes sense like in your body. It makes sense when you're performing as well.
And how long would it take? Like, for that,
I don't think...
Or just sit in the foundation.
The foundations. I don't think you ever stop learning in terms of performance, because I feel like you never get to a point where you're like, I'm perfect now. I've learned everything and like, I'm great. I feel like there's always room to improve. But I think the foundation really takes as long as you want to. I can't be like, it'll take 6 months and that's it. I think it's how much you're in, I don't use the word invested, but how interested you are in wanting to learn. And I think that's my concept on anything. It only takes you as long to learn something as long as you want to learn it. So like if you're not interested in it, it obviously takes longer to grasp the concept. I mean, with any subject, like if you don't like maths, you're not going to spend time with it. You're not going to really take it in. But if you intend to like, I want to learn this thing, I want to do it, it actually, you pick it up faster. That's my opinion. As a teacher.
It is actually a true reflection. So Grace, I think everyone mentioned interesting things here. I picked up foundation. So if I look at how you've described performance art, is that correct?
Yes.
It's an embodiment of everything art. So you're so deep into this, right? Like an Atlantic Ocean or something.
The Mariana Trench.
So like, when did this love for art develop in your life?
You can take me back now. So brief history, I'm a PK, I'm a pastor's kid, which like shocks everyone when I say that. So I grew up in the church, and my love for dance, I always say my first love is actually dance. My second love is poetry, but I don't say it out loud because then they're going to hate each other. But my first love was dance when I started dancing in church at the age of 8. And I sort of just, the spiritual dancing, the old school church, So that's where, that's okay. We need to talk. That's some church history over here. That laugh worries me. I feel like, no.
He needs a lot of lessons. Drop in his whip.
It looks like he's panicking over there. So that's where it started, and then my love for poetry or writing came like 13 when I made the transition from homeschool into like public school for the first time, which was a very like traumatizing phase, I think, for me, coming from just my brother and I in school, and then all of these people and kids, and like I don't know how to say hi or talk to anyone. So I used to just sit and write, and I think I always loved English. I loved like language. I loved what words could do. I think I loved reading novels. Like I used to finish like a whole novel in like a week. So my love for words was natural. So when I started writing, I think that just developed, and I just kept writing. And I only performed my poetry much later in life, like probably only 5 years ago for the first time. Like I got on stage and performed it, and then my love for performance, specifically with poetry, grew from that. So yeah, I started at a very young age. I think I always knew that it was something I loved and that I was passionate about and that I had to do it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite a profound story, actually. So obviously, we made mention of all these other things that you're doing, right? Um, I'm very curious. How do you really like organize your life in such a manner where you are able to do all these other things? Because, I mean, like certain things are very exhausting.
Yeah.
Like you could spend time doing your job, and by the time you knock off, you're already exhausted, and mentally you just need to free yourself up a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
But you're able to do all these other
Yeah.
things, which is very fun actually and very commendable.
Thank you.
So maybe like talk us through that whole process.
I consider myself lucky enough to be doing something I love. And I think, now, as you were saying that, I was like trying to figure out how is it that I'm not tired when I do all of these things. And I think it's because I'm doing something I love. I don't feel like it's work. And so
Yeah.
even if I'm tired, and not to say I don't come from a long day of teaching teenage kids that I'm not tired, but I was doing something I love, and I still feel like there's room to do the other things that I love, because that doesn't feel like work. So I do definitely though take time out some, because you need it. I think even and that's the what's the dangerous part of doing what you love. You do it so much you forget that you actually still need to rest. You're still human.
Yeah.
So I try to prioritize time for that as well, juggling, because I'm also like studying full time, so which is another thing that I'm doing. I forgot to throw that in there.
Is there any other surprises?
Working on like my 3rd degree now. I don't know why I keep studying. I also love learning, so I think that is where my love for teaching comes. So I'm juggling that. I'm juggling like 2 jobs. I'm juggling like hustles on the side. So.
Yeah,
But
that's-
it's just, it comes from the passion. I think that's what keeps me going.
No, I
Yeah.
implore that. It's actually great. Here's the thing that I actually wanted to ask you, right? So with art, just like you said, you love it and stuff, right? So when it becomes an obligation, now you've got people that are interested to work with you, or brands that are truly
see.
invested in you, and they expect you to sort of like perform every week, and your body is actually at that point where it's like, I need to rest,
Yeah.
but then you have to fulfill those obligations. Like, has it ever gotten to that point with you, or what would you do if it actually got to that point?
I think now in my like later years, I have learned to say no, which is very important. But it's also about picking your battles. I think also as artists, because being an artist is so difficult,
Yes.
especially in this country, we're like we're ready to jump. Like, if something comes, we need to do it. But I think we forget, like what I was saying, like we forget that we need a breather as well. So, but it's also picking your battles. Sometimes, yo man, if you need to hustle, you must burn yourself out because you need it at that moment. But then also prioritizing time afterwards.
Yeah.
So right now, in the last couple of years, I don't think I've put myself in that position, unless it was for my actual job, like my teaching, like 9 to 5, and getting to a point where like we have to go, like you're tired, but yo, it's Monday, it's work, like, let's do it. So, but also understanding your boundaries and when to say, you know what, this is a bit too much. It's not worth the money. It's not worth the time I'm putting in, because my mental health and my state is still
Yeah.
important. So yeah, that's where I'm still learning that, because I'm still an artist also, and I'm still like, it's a good
Developing,
opportunity.
yeah.
You have to sort of, weigh that out. Yeah.
The significance of that statement is actually we've heard a lot of other artists out there in the world actually saying that I was so exhausted and I needed to take some time off, and they were doing the very thing that they truly loved with all their hearts, but then it kind of like turned into their worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And it's no longer now done out of sheer passion and love. It's now as an obligation, or
Yeah.
I have to honor something. And I'm actually glad that it hasn't gotten to that point, and you sort of like have a plan in place.
Yeah.
Because it's important that we really discuss these things. Because I myself, like I said to you, that in my profession, there's times where I feel like, you know what, I just need to soak up everything, you know,
Yeah.
and
Just pause, yeah.
and just pause, and that's very important because it keeps you motivated as well, and it keeps you going.
Yeah.
You know, so I did actually like the fact that you have some plan in place for that, and yeah.
And then also on that, which you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
when what Brian actually just spoke about, it just dawned upon me that important part about mental health. Again, we've spoken about it before. We actually
Yeah.
constantly speak about it, and unfortunately we find ourselves, and a lot of people find themselves in that situation whereby things become too much to actually cope with, even though like you're getting paid, you have
Yeah.
everything that
Yeah.
you kind of wanted, but it's just too much to deal
Yeah.
with. And
Yes.
I mean, there's so many examples of people that, I mean, the Avicii's gone, Heath Ledger, the list goes on and on
Yeah.
and on. Very creative people, you know, and it's
Especially
actually sad.
creatives, yeah.
So with that in mind, it's always a theory of mine, which I'm not shooting anybody here, but I just wanted to know,
Yeah.
what's your opinion about like these brilliant actors and actresses that are able to switch personas and roles and characters? Like, do you think that somewhere along the line there's maybe a connection that's not either there, or it's maybe overlapping somewhere, whereby there's a little bit of instability? Because I mean, for you to be able to portray a role
Yeah.
in such a way that it's like it's completely believable,
Yeah.
you know, how do you pull that off and be sane?
And also, just to add to his point
Yeah.
as well, like don't like what happens when you stay
In that
those
role.
characters.
In
Yeah,
that, I was gonna make a
exactly.
comment on that
and
now.
you never really
yeah.
walk away from them. They become an inherent part of you now.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm laughing because I've thought about this, especially like when you think of Heath Ledger and like
Yeah.
that type of roles that they're playing.
Yeah.
And
that was sad,
even
though.
the last Joker that came out, like I was like,
Yeah.
you are not normal after after playing this character. But I think, especially as artists, because we are people who we either give 100% or we don't give. Like we're not gonna half like, you know,
Yeah.
anything. If you ask us for something, we want to pour that out. And I think the danger specifically with acting is not having, okay, it's two things. This is my assumption based on like my experience. Two things is not having a method put in place to de-roll, which is something I find very important. Even when I teach my acting, or if I have a session with kids where we had to take on other characters, I always de-roll them. Like even if they fine afterwards, like you take a second, you breathe, you come back into your body because you just took on
A different
someone's persona or
Yeah.
someone's feelings.
Yeah.
It's important for you to just ground yourself and be like, okay, the session is done, we're moving on. But for actors like that who do it consistently, like they're on set every day, they like have to channel this, like they get into this method acting zone where you have to become, if you're going to be that good, you
Exactly.
you need to literally get into the mind
Yeah.
of that. And I think the repetition of it and being so passionate about the craft,
Yes.
you get lost in it. And it's painful because it's like I don't think there's a clean cut way of saying he could have done different, he could have like not fallen into that. Because I mean, especially in that industry, when you're that good
Yeah.
and people know you're that good, you also like, I need to do this,
You need to
I need to
deliver.
play this
Yeah.
role fully. And when you go home though, no one checks in on you.
Yeah, that's
You know,
Yeah.
no one is going, hey,
Check-in
so like
sessions,
today's
guys.
scene was
Yeah.
hectic, like, are you okay? And I think
Yeah.
that's what's missing in the industry as well, which is why I'm like a big thing of like mental health and checking in with yourself and understanding where you stand, because not everyone does that for you. No one
That's true.
after something has happened checks in and says, yo, like, that was hectic, are you okay? It was
Yeah.
quite an emotional scene, you look like you took on a lot. And I mean, I've been in positions like that where I've witnessed on stage as well, like someone really getting into character, walking backstage and they're still in the character.
Wow.
And you sort of
Must be
have to,
scary.
and like if there's, for instance, like a crying scene or emotional scene,
Yeah.
walk off the stage and they're still crying, like
Yeah.
hectically, because you've sort of taken on that role. And I think as creatives, we are empaths as well.
Okay.
We don't just, we can really take a emotion or a feeling and be like, if I was this person, this is how I would feel. So I don't have a direct answer for you, but
no,
I think it could be a combination of those things. It could be one, or it could be something else as well. But it is a tough thing as creatives and performers, especially I think in the acting industry and that world, that no one, especially the best actors and like the greatest actors who just, you see them falling because of mental health.
Because with Heath Ledger, on the check-ins, I think he actually locked himself. I'm not 100% sure. He locked himself in his apartment for like the entire duration of, actually prior to the shooting and then during that phase, so that he can really embody this character. So that made it even worse because now you don't have that breakaway, like you say.
Exactly. They
check
really
out
immerse into that.
Exactly. So now you're just loving this guy. Apparently, even did his own makeup. They had a makeup artist, but he's like, now if he was really the Joker would have done his own makeup and it would have.
That's like truly embodying. But you see the brilliant performance that came out of it. But then I come back to my first point of, you need to pick your battles. Like, what are you willing to also go to that length? And maybe you don't understand how hectic it's going to be at the end. But again, if you are aware firstly of your mental state and how this could affect you if you took this on, I think it's coming with that. It comes with that self-awareness as an artist or a performer or creative, of being like, okay, I know who I am. I understand this might be too much for me. Maybe I shouldn't lock myself for like 30 days straight. Maybe I should just have moments where I check out. But again, it's like the pressure of that like industry is also like super hectic. And I mean, he gave the best performance of his life, but no one was going, is he okay though? Because
that's the thing.
Because it's intense.
I think there's a level of pragmatism that's required to actually be able to tap in and out, because I think of football players, for instance, like playing in crowds where people are literally like abusing them, and how they just switch off and just focus on what they're doing,
on what's happening,
and it's not like they oblivious to what's happening. They know, then they actually experiencing it, but they have moments where they just switch off and say, I'll deal with this later, and then they go back to being humans again, and then they get to address all these things that the abuse that I actually suffered today was not cool. And you think, wow, but you were so good there, you didn't seem disturbed. And it is what it is.
Keeping that composure in tough times. I remember actually drifting off, but since you mentioned soccer, I just remember the 2006 World Cup final with Italy and Zidane. Italy and France, obviously, and Zidane took the penalty at like, what was it, 6 minutes into the game or something like that. And at the time that he got to the box, the commentators were like, just look at him. It's as if there's ice running through his veins. And you could imagine that at that moment, it's the biggest, stage in football. So the pressure, the captain taking the and this was now the decider of whether they would lead at that moment or not. And the whole country, not only the team, the entire country is on his shoulders at this moment. And calm, composed, he just chips it in. It takes a really strong mind to be able to do that.
And it was a bit,
and if you think about it, that's actually a performance.
Exactly.
Having to take on that, like, just switch off and be like, this is what I need to do now. You have to sort of do that. And like you're saying, it comes with sort of being pragmatic and understanding what your role is and what you need to do, and then being able to like leave and be like, okay, I'm leaving this there, and this now I'm stepping into this.
So how would it be like getting on stage, right? To the first time you got on stage. So just with regards to your confidence, confidence always, or whatever creeps in, your confidence level, like you don't have that confidence level again, So how is it like when you on stage?
Are you talking about the very first time or like now?
Okay, the very first time compared to now.
The very first time was horrible. I'm specifically talking about my first time performing poetry. So the first time I did spoken word, I was such a mess. I was like, And I have the video still from it, and I look back from time to time, and I'm like, what was going on here? And I don't think it's so much confidence, like, because I've been performing. I'd been
Alright.
on stage productions at this point.
Okay.
I'd toured and performed at different towns and cities, but I'm specifically using poetry because it was my first time doing
Alright.
spoken word. And I'm like, I'm really good at memorizing things. I'm like, I'm gonna get on that stage, knock it out, And that night, one of my favorite poets was like the headliner. So then I was like more nervous because I was like, flip, this guy is like amazing. He's like the person I want to be like. And I was like, I have to give my all. And I got on stage and I choked. Like my lines I went like completely blank. And I remember I was shaking even. Like I was literally shaking that my
Wait, so
voice.
you shared the stage with this guy that you were looking up to?
Yes, he was the headliner that night.
Wow.
And this was at the Joburg Theatre, so it wasn't even like a small stage,
Yeah.
like a cafe stage. It was like, just theatre, there was lights, there was, a spotlight on the stage.
Something like
And
the House of Blues.
I mean, the great thing is I'm very passionate about improv. Like I love improvising.
Yeah.
Like I just enjoy that. So I covered it up, but like if I remember myself on stage, I was like I was a mess. I was a mess, and I remember leaving stage. When you walk off, and I had forgotten everything that just happened. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
recall. Like, did I perform right? What did I say? Did I say
Yeah.
something wrong?
Until you check the video and you're like,
I can't. I kept looking back, and when I think about it now, I don't think that was a lack of confidence so much as
Yeah.
it was. I don't want to use the word self-doubt, but thinking that I am probably not as good as the person who's coming after me. And I think that's the mistake in anything we do, whether in
Exactly.
any setup, whether it's an office job, whatever you're doing. I think it's not so much like, because I have the ability, I have the skill, I've studied for this thing, but we always like, there's someone here who's probably better than me, which is probably true. Like there's always going to be someone better than you, but
It's true as your mind believes it to be.
there we go. So the minute you already think someone's better, you already like,
Defeated.
I'm not
Yeah.
gonna do well or whatever. But also, how are you gonna get to that level if you're not gonna try and do it? So now that's something I go on stage with, is like, I know what I'm capable of. Yes, the next person might like perform better, or the person before me, but this is what I have. This
Yeah.
is what I hold, and that's what I'm gonna give. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a quote here by Elon Musk. It says, "Embarrassment is the cost." I'm sure you're the one who sent me this. I don't know.
it's the X-Master.
Embarrassment is the cost of entry. If you aren't willing to look like a foolish beginner, you'll never become a graceful master.
There we go.
So that's exactly what happened
That
with
is-
you. You put yourself in an opportunity flow, and
Yeah.
from there onwards, you became better and better and better. When are you
It's
starting?
just
Sir?
trying. It's trying.
When am I
With
starting?
ballet.
Yeah, I was about to ask.
I'm ready. I tell my students, like, it's not about, like, I hate the word I can't. When my kids tell me, like, I can't. No, but I can't. I'm like, that's not I really dislike the word I can't.
So what would you like them to replace it with?
I will try.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because sure, you can't right now, but you
Yeah.
don't know that you
Yeah.
can't fully do it
Yes.
because you've never done it before, right?
Yeah.
So even like with kids when I teach dance, and like, but I can't dance. I'm like, it's not a real thing. Try.
Yeah.
I'm not, and the thing is, I don't ask you to be perfect.
Exactly.
It's not like I'm asking you to be pointing your toes in perfect angle of whatever and doing your twirls, but I need you to try, because that's how you're actually gonna learn and get better.
Yes.
So in anything that I do, so I'm always with the concept like, yeah, I can't, or I say I can't right now, but I'll try, because yes, you probably have never danced before or drawn a picture before, but that's where the practice comes in.
Yeah.
The challenge with life as a whole is people are actually interested in the final product. Nobody
the
wants
process.
to, yeah, not the,
The
process.
process.
Nobody
Not the
wants
journey.
to put the body off work.
Didn't Jay-Z
They just
say
wanna-
That's the most important part.
Yeah, like like if you wanna be a person that's just going to like kick a ball and expect it to go in first time, then you'll most probably fail in life, because you need to go through the practice and understand like what it means to actually get the ball where you want it to
Exactly.
go. And that process is what actually gives you experience.
And it makes the final product mean more. I always say that, because
Yeah,
you
that's true.
understand what you've put in.
The
That now when you
sacrifices.
get to the end, you're like, yeah, like I actually worked to get to this point. So 100% to that.
And also on that, I think we spoke about it as well before, about the word or the term "I can't do this" or "I can't."
Yeah.
Napoleon said that "can't" is a word that belongs in the dictionary of fools.
That's a brilliant statement.
Yeah. So and
I wonder
also,
in how many episodes does that quote have to feature?
because I need,
But
But
I need
I
to make
wonder
sure.
in how many episodes does Elon Musk have to feature as well as Zidane?
Oh,
Like,
is this a thing? Is this a thing?
It's a thing. It's a thing.
it's
Like
just
we just
shade, like,
fans. Yeah.
you know.
But you know, it's to your point, it's very important. I actually tell my niece that we watch some videos online of gymnasts, because she does ballet as well,
Okay.
and she's into gymnastics and ballet and all those things. So we watch videos and she's like, okay, but I can't do that. I'm like, no, it's not that you can't do it, you just need to practice, because
Yeah.
we don't know.
Mm.
And then she practices some of the things and I'm like, you see, and now she actually changed that entire mindset. She's
Yeah.
like, I just need to practice it.
Yes,
Then
exactly.
she shows me, and she's
Just try.
exactly. So,
Hmm.
to his point as well about the ballet, he's been waiting to learn this. He has his tutu, he knows his pizza legs and all those things.
Good
So-
toes, bad
Okay,
toes.
So, what? Oh yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Yes,
Forgive
yes.
me.
Come back.
Thank you. In your entire space as a performance artist, so not specific, well, maybe in the specific categories,
Yeah.
who are the, I know you spoke about the guy in the poetry, but more broader than that, who are the people that maybe kind of pushed you to well, what that you emulated, let me say that, is
Or shaped you in a certain way, for that matter.
No one has ever asked me this question. Now that I think of it, now I'm like, I don't know. I can't really put it, because now when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't think there's one specific person. I think, now you're making my brain is like
all over the
ooh.
place. So maybe
Um,
let's go to maybe poetry. Let's start there.
I will say though that I discovered her. Why I'm saying there's not one specific person, because when I trace back to when I started, there wasn't a specific person. I was actually very influenced by rap.
Okay.
Like that's what like Eminem was like. I was big D12 like fan, like heavily. Like I knew every single lyric in
Oh,
every
my
single like
goodness.
D12. I like all of them, all
Yeah.
of those guys. And that's so when I started writing poetry, I used to write in like rap, in like verse.
Mm.
So it wasn't like poet, it wasn't like the roses are red. But
Yeah.
no, I was
think
like,
you got it from Tupac.
so I listened a lot, like, and when people like, I just listened to hip hop, and I used to sit, by the tape, and you like, I used to
Yeah,
record
yeah,
from
yeah,
the
yeah.
from the CD onto the
Oh,
tape,
yes.
and then like pause, and then like write the lyrics, because
Yeah.
Google wasn't there yet with
Yeah,
lyrics.
yeah.
I used to have a
He
rap
doesn't
book.
know that time. He's still young, so he doesn't understand time before Google.
So I was like, I would literally spend like hours and hours writing the lyrics to like every rap song, and I had like a book with just lyrics in. So a lot of my poetry influence in terms of my writing comes from that. And funny enough, if you look at my writing style, it reflects a lot of the old T-Pain. I actually
Yeah.
listened to when T-Pain used to do,
wow.
because he does some poetry on some of his, I think it was his second album. There's a piece he
Epiphany.
does. Yes, on
Yeah,
Epiphany, that one.
yeah.
And that style of like his flow,
Yes.
I was like listening to him, I was like, well, I think I've been influenced by T-Pain a little bit. So I think I've drawn from various aspects. So there was the rap side, and then I discovered Marina Abramovic. She's a performance artist. That woman she's not okay. She's crazy, but her
must check
love,
it out.
you must. Marina, she's, I keep forgetting the country she's from.
Abramovic, she must
She's
must
like
be Russian.
not Russian. It's somewhere there.
Czechoslovakian or
Yeah, it's one of these weird. Okay, let me not say weird countries, but yeah. But she is like full on performance art. So she does a performance art in galleries, like proper, like. But she provokes the audience to really think further than what the eye sees. And when I discovered her, I'd only discovered her in varsity when I was like, where's this woman been all my life? And she's been performing since she was like in her early 20s. She's now in her 60s, I think, and she still performs.
Wow.
But she does crazy things. Like the craziest one she did was in a gallery in, I think it was in New York at the MoMA. She would sit across the table and she did a piece on just looking into someone's eyes. So there was like an audience and people would come and sit. But the intense emotion that would be evoked from, she was trying to sort of play on the idea of really reading into someone without speaking, and like how you can transfer emotions and feelings just by eye contact. And you watch how some of these people really like, you see them breaking in front, like, and she's just looking. You're just like across a long table like this.
Really?
And you're just staring, and you'd have like a minute with her. And when you leave that, you're so transformed. But that's the power of performance art as well, because it evokes more than just like, okay, we're just here to see art. And but like, it really makes you think. And a moment like that makes you think, what does it mean to connect with someone? What does it mean to feel what someone's feeling without having to say anything, for instance? So, but she's done some crazy work as well, like self-inflicted. I want to tell, I'm going to take all your podcast time now. One of my favorite ones she does, there's a table with multiple, just to give you an idea of what art, how far art goes, multiple objects on the table, from knives, spoons, tape, pins, and then there was a gun, like an actual gun loaded with a bullet. And the concept of this, so she was sat by the table, and the instruction was the audience or whoever came to the gallery, anything on the table you can use, and you can do whatever you want to her with an object. And it started, and this questioned how far people would go when they were given the opportunity to do whatever they wanted. So it also like spoke back to like human instinct, how quickly you could turn from like sweet to, I want to maybe inflict pain because no one's going to punish me for it type of thing. And it started off very simple, like someone taking the lipstick, putting it on her, someone like taking a pen, writing on her. Then someone took the scissors and then clipped her dress off. And then by the time like it got to the end, she was naked already. So people started undressing her. And then it was the pins, you know, they were actually inflicting pain. And the last one got to a guy picking up a gun. And the gun was loaded. And she's so crazy that she's like, if I die tonight,
it's all for the name of art.
It's for the love of art, to make a point. So she was prepared to die. She knew the gun was loaded. The audience knew the gun was loaded. And one of the guys picked up the gun and pointed it at her. And then the other audience like was always just like, they were just watching. And then this one guy like stopped him and was like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, don't. And he was like, well, it's here. You know, so there was a whole back and forth between the two of now arguing, do I do this because I've got the right to? So it's more than just like, you know, pretty art and things. It really makes you think, okay, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't be prepared to take a bullet at this point. But I think that kind of art and the art that makes you think is what inspires me. So artists like that, where I'm like, I'm not just doing this to sound nice, to look good, but like, what am I leaving my audience with? I always try and do that with my work is, am I making you think when you leave out of from here, what are you considering changing a perspective? Are you considering thinking of what you've done, how you could do differently? Are you thinking of other people now? So yeah, that's like my inspiration.
Is it possible if you can share something with us, like
what am I sharing?
like a poem or something, like just on the top of
do you
your
want to
head?
do that now?
Maybe,
Yeah, like I hope you're not putting you on the spot.
or maybe just before we close up and
All
then
right.
we have to
I
leave
can
the
I can
audience
do
with
that.
something.
I'm always ready.
Okay.
Got some stuff in my pocket, you know, that I can pull out.
Also, by the way,
Yeah.
he has a notebook filled with Celine Dion songs as well.
I'd love to hear the renditions of those.
It's kind of locked up somewhere in his house. He doesn't want us to reach that area.
goodness. And just to add to that, the lady's Serbian. She's Serbian. I think she's 74. Yeah, I just checked up.
She's in her
now.
she's in her 70s
74,
already.
yeah.
And she
Serbian.
still performs like to this day. She still does like big art movements, and she has a whole company now and all of that. So
We
I
need to
mean,
check
that
it out.
story
yeah.
is very staggering, but so interesting at the same time.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you how far boundaries can be pushed, eh?
yeah.
It actually reminded
If you're
me
willing
of
to.
yeah, if you're willing to. It actually reminded me of this Netflix series Squid Game.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I
you guys
heard
know
about
about
I
it,
it.
but I
still
haven't
need to
watched
watch
it.
it. I'm
Yeah.
waiting for the hype to die down. Like, then I'll
Well-
watch it.
Well, I have actually watched it
Yeah.
because I mean, like, I was kind of like put in the tight spot, and I just had to like get it over and
Yeah.
done with. But towards the end of it, right? I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but
Please
then
don't. Yeah.
so there's a concept here
Yeah.
that's being spun to us that if you have too little or if you give too little, you'll never be happy. And if you have too much
Much.
or you give too much, you'll never be happy too. You won't find
Hmm.
joy. Because basically, imagine if you had all the money in the world and you could afford everything there is to
Yeah.
ever think of. And where would the joy come from?
Yeah.
You know, so like speaking of pushing the boundaries, and that's how far art can go. At some point you're gonna have to draw the line and say this is where I stop. So sometimes we want these guys to go on forever.
Yeah.
You're like, more, I want more, but there has to be a time where someone says enough is enough.
Yeah. I think it's also very subjective in terms of, or rather, let me say objective in terms of the artist, right? Like, I know, like I said, I will never put myself in a position where there's a loaded gun and I'm like, for the name of art, you know, because that's not my goal, for instance. And I think each artist needs to understand that about themselves. Like, how far would you go for art, but also what are you trying to do with your art, which
Yeah.
is the most important thing, I think. It's not just like, well, for me, it's not just like to sound, like I said, sound good, look pretty, and my art is great, but like, am I provoking something
Yeah.
in the people that are engaging with me? Because if I feel like if I'm not making a change, at least in one person who lives in my audience, then my art is in vain. Like, I'm just doing it for the sake of, you know, and I feel like I could not have been given this gift for myself. I always say that.
Yeah.
My gifts and my talents are not God given for me, like for me to be satisfied with it. Like, there has to be greater purpose to why I have this, because there's a whole world that I'm sharing this with, you know. So, yeah.
It's almost like the story of the servant and the talents.
Mhm.
You know, you have the talent and
Yeah.
yeah.
100%.
So obviously with poetry and writing being almost like a married couple in some way, shape, or form,
yeah.
how do you, or well, is there any distinction between those two when you actually like writing now, like a
Yeah.
book? Do you sort of like have to switch now characters or personalities or the mind frame, or basically
Yeah.
the logic is the same?
I think it's different. I think there's a difference, and I think, look, with my books, even it's still poetry books, but it's very different from the type of poetry I perform. So I write very specifically performance poetry that I will do on stage, and then when I write my short poems or collections, it's a very different sound. Even the way, if I'd had to read them, I'd read them differently. So I do think it does access a different side of, now I'm sounding like Heath Ledger, a different side of me, but it's, yeah, I think if you're talking about writing a novel, I think that is different in the sense of style. It comes down to your style of writing, though, because everyone writes, even as poets, I can identify a certain poet and the way they write, whether it's in the rhyme, whether it's in the way it flows in terms of the writing. There's like all those differences as well. And I think finding your, like, what makes you unique, or what makes you, like, your writing work for you, that's what you need to find as well. Yeah.
And who would you prefer between Shakespeare and Maya Angelou?
Yeah, very two different. Very two. Look,
That's a tough
I
one.
can't say I wouldn't say I prefer one over the other. I think each of them have their
Unique
this,
offerings.
I don't know how to describe this. Like the spice.
Magical sparks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think each of them is relevant to their time. Because when you think of Shakespeare and like the these and thous, like it made sense back then, but also the type of work that he wrote in terms of even like his tragedies, like that's what his plays were about. That's what his poems was always about, love and like heartbreak. And he had a very unique way of expressing it with his metaphors, and like these big metaphors, like big, like you really had to think of like, what is he actually trying to say? And there was always deeper meaning. And then you see like Maya, who also very metaphorically heavy, but more, how do I say, like more tangible, like you can understand it.
More relatable, especially in this day and age.
Especially for this age,
Yeah.
because back then it was Old English. You needed to write.
Yeah.
Those people needed to understand. So it's language also, like, you know, I really hope we don't start writing poetry and with skr and no cap. Can we not?
to do that?
I hope that language does not get there. But, you know, I think it's important to understand the times and how it evolves and how you stay relevant to the audience and the people of the time. So yeah,
And then also just on that, how many languages do you speak?
I speak 3 languages, like fluent: English, Xhosa, and Afrikaans.
Oh, you speak Xhosa.
It's my first language.
Really?
I was raised Xhosa.
Wow.
Ding! Surprise!
So I mean, then you must be a goddess if you're Xhosa.
Just like you, Brian. You're a goddess.
Well, not a goddess.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, very interesting fact about me that a lot of people know. I was raised in the Eastern Cape. So I was born in Cape Town, but I was raised in the Eastern Cape. So I was raised like Xhosa. That's like culturally, that's what I identify as, because I didn't grow up with my colored family.
Now that
So-
explains your talents.
Why?
It's now making more sense.
What does that have to do with
Oh,
that?
my goodness.
I'm just amplifying our tribe. That's it.
Okay,
Oh.
okay. Just
Comrades.
explain why. Makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
And in the singing
Yeah.
space, because we
Yeah.
touched on the poetry.
No, but we haven't spoken about the books.
We'll come to the books.
Okay.
Come to the
It's gonna be a
books.
long episode.
Exactly, and
Just
we have all the
saying.
time. I hope you have the time, because I mean it's so interesting. We actually don't want to stop. I know X-Men is burning over there, but don't you want to order him something cool like the last week or something?
Maybe I should.
He might end up at the embassy again.
What story is this?
Let's just say he had one too many
Okay.
drinks.
Yeah, Maurice.
Yeah, so from the singing side, we haven't touched base on that. What do you actually perform? Like, what type of singing?
I wish.
Are you genre specific or you just
no?
open to any sort of interpretation?
You know, when I was younger,
Mhm.
I really wanted to be a singer. Like that was like, I'm gonna be a professional singer. I'm gonna be there, and I think it's one of my gifts that I feel I've not fully
Tapped
dove into. Yeah. Because I think dance and poetry took like preference, and I was more focused with that.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy singing. Like I sing now and there, but what I've done now is incorporate it into my poetry.
Mm.
So again, like I said, I don't like to just use one aspect. I love to draw from my poetry, and then I also have like poetry in motion, where a lot of my poetry videos I would do dance as well. So I'd interpret the poetry through visuals as well.
Yeah.
So my singing just comes out there, like in the poetry side. But I also grew up singing in the church. That's
Okay.
where I developed that. But it was not something, even now when I think about it, if they're saying like, do you want to go more into that like side of things, I'm not really like drawn to that as much. But it's a part of me I don't like to lose, so I keep it alive in my performances that I do.
Okay, so you spoke about the hip hop that you drew from, but what other genres of music did you listen to?
I'm a big R&B, soul, neo soul fan.
Okay.
I don't listen to commercial music. Like I don't know what's hot right now in the pop scene or anything. So I enjoy listening to like your underground artists, the ones who are not mainstream, the ones who are underrated right now. That's what I spend most of my time listening to. Then the dance side of me obviously has to keep up with the amapianos and the afro. So I'm all genres really. I'm open to all. The only thing I don't listen to is like current like pop.
Yeah.
Like whatever's playing currently on the radio, I would not know what the skrs are currently hitting up. So that's where I'm at.
And the dance as well. Sorry, I have lots
Yeah.
of questions. Like I'm a fan of a lot of things, so excuse me.
Yeah.
Not like Brian, who's like a real special fan of ballet, but
Yes. Specifically.
yeah, that's like number one.
You've been very emphatic about this, eh?
I just have to let it be clear, that that's how you roll. And I got your back.
I know.
The performance. Oh, there's this lady, Crystal Pite. I don't know if you know. I don't know if I'm
Crystal.
pronouncing her name correctly as well. Maybe after the session, I'll show you
Yeah,
something about her.
please.
It was just marvelous. It was like a whole group of people moving. The intention is this group of people moving as one body.
Yeah.
So forming a sculpture
Yes.
from. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And do you then, because you spoke about Amapiano and the what other music did you say?
Afro,
yeah.
house, Afro beats, yeah.
About like your classical dance, like your waltz, tangos, and all those type of things. Do you do all those as well?
I do. So I trained in dance theater, which is like another genre I'll explain to you. So dance theater is more performative dance. So it pulls from all genres, but dance theater specifically has a story to tell. So it's not just pirouetting and flying in the sky, but there's a story. So it's theatrical. There's an actual story happening, and then also physical theater, which is part of sort of branches out from dance theater. But I also trained in ballet. Hated it. No hate to ballet. No hate to the ballerinas in the house. But
You're pressing the wrong one.
yeah. So, but I mean, I appreciate what it taught me. I just, because of, I feel like I'm gonna just drop bombs about myself. So I have like multiple injuries that I went through. So ballet never like sat well with my body, but I appreciated it for what it was, and
The art form.
I draw from it now also in my teaching. But I do kizomba as well, which is also a Latin
That's
dance.
what he's looking
I
for, yeah.
love kizomba. It's
Kizomba
like my
dance.
whole
Yeah,
Yeah, I
life.
know
exactly.
Kizomba.
Yes,
He's looking forward to it,
kizomba.
yeah.
I
From
also,
Angola, right?
yes.
And the music
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
It's
Love
almost
it.
like your
Latin jazz.
Yes.
yeah,
type of-
Latin
yeah.
Yes.
jazz,
So
cha-cha, whatever.
Yes, like
that.
salsa. So it
Salsa,
pulls from
yeah.
salsa, yeah, but it's more intimate, more slow.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a
Exactly what it's
beautiful,
looking for,
beautiful
It
dance.
is, yeah.
But also
like,
the thing is,
so, like-
everyone's like, it's so sexual. It's
That's
actually
exactly
not.
what
It's not. Do you know
I
that?
see
Do you
why
know
he
that
likes
the
it now.
dance? But do you know that the dance actually, obviously it's Angolan, but it originated from family members dancing together because it was a good point of showing connection between family members. So like even males would dance with males. That's that same dance. So when people are like it's sexual, I'm like it's actually a very respectful dance.
Yeah.
But also that space in Kizomba,
Yeah.
it's not that. So when you even dance with someone, there's no like weird like
Yeah.
we're too close, I'm in your crotch, you're in mine, what's happening? Because it happens because you
Yeah.
but there's a big understanding of respect even in the dance, because even when you pull up because usually at a social a guy would just come up to one of the girls and be like,
Yeah.
do you want to dance? You don't necessarily have to know each other. And you dance, there's no conversation that happens, there's no in the
Yeah.
ears. You dance one song and then
That's it.
you embrace and say thank you
Yeah.
and you leave.
Yeah.
There's no like
Any exchange of-
I mean,
yeah.
if you want to go sit later on and have a chat, but when the dance happens, it's you have to respect that. And if you want to dance a second song, you have to ask. You have to be like, can I?
I don't
Yeah.
think that sort
So-
of dance is conducive for South African people.
Is it?
They would kill each other.
But yeah,
Imagine
so
like I'm just like sitting there with someone and someone wants to dance with my girlfriend and it's like
no, but you come into that space knowing that's what's gonna happen.
yeah, but that's why I'm saying that like there has to be like some cultural disclaimer attached to it so that people
So
understand
people
that this is the
know.
landscape, this is the
Yeah.
atmosphere, and this is the dynamic. Because
Yeah, you
otherwise,
can't come
Maurice is
unprepared.
he's gonna beat us up when we start dancing with people that he doesn't want us to dance with.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, man. That's so I dabble in all
Multiple
in all of the
facets.
dances.
And what's this? The forbidden dance?
What's the forbidden?
Isn't it, is it the tango?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually never got into. I've always wanted to do sort of that heavy, like your cha-cha and your tango and the passe doble,
Salsa.
which
Yeah,
looked like,
yeah.
but I never got into that.
Okay.
And I really think, okay, not that it's too late to learn, but I feel like that's really those specific strong dances in Latin. You need to like be practicing from a young age, especially when I look at the
Yes,
passe doble. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah.
The movements
So-
there. 'Cause, I mean, you could.
But he's good at climbing a pole.
We're bringing in pole dancing now.
It's also a dance.
It is a dance. It's called pole fitness now. It's
There
not
was-
called
there's
pole
a private
dancing.
matter.
There's a song about it. T-Pain sings about it. What does it say?
I'm in love with a stripper. What?
Yeah, and there's
Something
there's another one where he sings about shorty going up, down,
Oh.
something.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
one.
that's
Speaking of
Always.
which,
Don't ask me a stripper question.
no.
Yes.
This is a very important question actually. On the T-Pain subject. So T-Pain recently made a revelation about what Asha told him one time.
Yes, I
right?
heard that. Yeah.
They were flying together and basically he literally said you basically ruined
Yeah.
music. So the question I have for you is now when your art and your self-expression, right, is now a nightmare for others, how do you position yourself? Because ultimately that's what Asha was suggesting about T-Pain's
Auto-tune.
auto-tune, right, which obviously opened a whole new realm now for music, and there's a lot of people that actually got opportunities because of that auto-tune. So you are there now as Grace and you're presenting something new to people. That's how you wish, or that's how you want to express yourself, and people are saying nope, they're pushing back.
Look, two things. That's an opinion. So that's Asha's opinion, and maybe some others. Not to say it was the only one. Three things. I'm lying. Three things. Opinion. Second thing, I feel like T-Pain set a trend, like you're saying. It opened doors to many, and I mean, whether you think the auto-tune is fake singing, because he can actually sing.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes him unique, is he can sing, but he started this thing that became his thing.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Now I forgot the third point. Now I'll come back to the third point. So coming back to your question then on, as artists, I think if you are not standing strong or firm in what you feel, even if there's half of the audience is split and it's like, actually we don't like this, lose the half of the audience, build from the ones that are there. Because if you're going to constantly live up to your art to satisfy that man there in the crowd and this one there, you're constantly going to be doing this with your art,
true.
and you're never going to find what. And I know for a fact, there's probably some people who don't like my poetry or the way that I perform my poetry or what I do with my poetry, and I'm always like,
but the funny thing about this whole thing is we're so inclined to go for that one bad comment that someone made about us and actually
focus on
overlook what
All the positive.
impact
Yes.
is that we've actually brought into play. And I mean, T-Pain could have actually pride himself with what he's actually done for a
Yeah.
generation that actually just came after he had made that discovery. And he's saying that it actually put him in a different state. What Asha said about him, I'm like, but bro, look at what you've actually done for the culture. That doesn't matter. It goes back to your point that if it means that you have to lose half of your audience, and staying true to yourself, true to yourself.
Yeah.
But I think maybe also from his side, because I know a lot of people spoke about the feedback that they received from people maybe they idolized or they respected, and now when people
That's the
are
thing,
so when people are those people are the people that
Specifically.
turn their backs on you, it's difficult pill to swallow. So that may have been one of those things that the masses could say yay, but the
That
master, the one person
who
that
you
really idolize says nay, you lose complete faith and hope in yourself and just stop doing music altogether because of that. Just one
And
comment.
I feel like at the end of the day, we are human, and those, it's like it's the whole idea of you work so hard and if for instance, I'm making this analogy, you want your parents to be proud, for instance, and everyone could be clapping, but if your parents
Are
are
not
not
clapping,
proud, you feel that the most, So I think
Something
it comes
missing,
down to who Usher is in the industry, and him making that comment probably really did set him back. But I think, yeah, man, it's a difficult thing. But I think once you, especially for T-Pain, you should he changed a lot in his time, and I think he could, like you said, he could have pride himself on the fact that look at the work he's done, where he's put the industry now and opened those doors. So it's I don't know, it's a bit of a catch-22 there of how do you take those opinions, who it comes from, and what's the intention also behind that comment. Like, what was Usher trying to say? Really, like, was he trying to stop him to make music? Was he trying to say, yo, my guy, try something else? So I think also context as well can also be considered.
And I also think it was a different time, like everyone was sort of like, and we all have that phase where we push back. We're like, we don't want this, right?
Yeah.
And as with the passage of time, like everyone is like receptive all of a sudden,
Suddenly,
as if
yeah.
like they never really push back on
Yeah.
something. Sometimes it's tech. Like imagine like how long it took for other people to really embrace Apple, like the entire
Yeah.
product
Yeah.
on its own, because like people were always pushing back on
But they were
on the basis that
consistent.
it's too expensive, expensive, and then people realize
there
that
you
cheap
are.
is expensive,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
you'd rather go for the big guys.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But I want us to go to your book,
Yeah.
your books actually.
The 3 books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to know?
What's let's speak about the first one. What's the title?
All right. So the first books. So I released them as a double series. The first one is called With Time, and then you do this, and then it's the second book. I'm so proud of this because I was like, 2 books in one. So it reads as a series. So you have to read With Time first, and then you go over to, you flip it around, and then you read Light. This was
That is
released
awesome.
in 2019. It's a collection of short poems. So both are collections of short poems, but they themed. So With Time speaks really about the sort of the caption here is things I never thought I'd write about. And I think everyone can relate to this one because breakup. Hi. So this actually is a journey of my healing that took place after really like traumatizing breakup, and specifically like things I never thought I'd write about because I never thought I'd be in this position with this specific person. So it's basically the journey of what it feels like to be left and what you go through in that, and then also looking at the perspective of the person that left and why they left, and then the journey of me like finding myself and finding my self-worth, and finding that healing. So with time, the concept of with time all things heal and all things come to light. And while the writing of this was happening, because this was probably an 8-month process. When I started writing, I didn't write with the intention to publish. I was just, it's me getting through my thoughts, and then I used to post them on like Facebook and social media, and then I started getting inboxes from people. They were like, dude, your poetry, like I relate, like this is so amazing. And then someone was like, why don't you just write a book about it? So I was like, maybe I'll put it in the book. So when I finished the whole series, I then decided, let me compile it and write this. And in the process of this, I simultaneously started writing Light, because at the time I then met someone new, and then I was like, there's a Light. So that was sort of the journey of, but Light is also a lot to do with finding self-worth again and coming into love with yourself first, finding that within yourself, and then that translating. So this is actually a picture of me that my friend designed.
That's dope.
Yeah, so he did a great job with this cover. I designed this one. I'm proud of this one. It's this watch.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically it. And it's a collection of short little poems, with some illustrations. And it's I love to, with my work, I said I love it to be interactive. I don't like to think I'm performing and you're listening. Like we're in this together.
Yeah.
So the book is interactive. There's like incomplete poems, so you can complete it as you feel. There's some illustrations you can complete as well. And then some questions about your own healing journey, just to help you through the process. So yeah, that was the first book and the second book. And then the third one released this year in July, so just a couple of months ago. And this one was titled Love and Other Stuff, which is about love and
Other stuff.
other stuff. And
The
again,
other stuff is what I'm interested
this,
in.
everyone says it. Everyone's like, "What's the other stuff?" So there are actions. So the other stuff, it's in 4 sections. So it's about love. So I write about the concept of love, what love is to me. So not like being in love, but more like the idea
Love, yeah.
of what it feels like. And
Weren't they playing a song now, Love is Stronger Than Pride as well? So
oh, and it came together
just
with
at
that.
the right time, yeah.
And then the second part is intermissions. It's titled intermissions, which is intermission is obviously like a brief pause between a break, right? That you take. And intermissions was inspired by then me and my breakups, guys. I would not have books if it wasn't
It reminds me of Adele as well.
Yeah, basically. But intermission specifically speaks about not necessarily the actual breakup, but the moment before a breakup where you're deciding what's best for you. So so the poems are not like I'm sad now we broke up. It's more like really deep internal thoughts of what I'm dealing with, how I'm being mistreated or treated well, and making the decision to then. So it's like a pause before the actual break. And then I have a section on grief, which is another topic I speak a lot about in my poetry, which is a topic I don't think we speak about enough as a society. What it means to grieve, what is grief, how do we grieve, is there one way? So I try to embody what grief is in the multiple ways that it can come out. So I speak about grief, and then the last one is called worth, which is speaking to finding your self-worth and coming to be in yourself. So that's the other stuff that gets spoken
Where can we
about.
get those?
Yeah,
Good
good question.
Straight directly from me.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so they're not available in retail, right?
No, not yet. Yeah.
And what are they
Any contact
retailing
numbers?
for if we can maybe?
The price. So I was actually selling them as a collection, so you can get all 3 for $240, or you can get them separately for $130. So if you get both,
Yeah.
there's a discount.
Oh,
you know
that's
what I'm
amazing.
saying?
Yeah.
So,
I
but the
definitely-
one is 2-in-1, so you're actually getting
Yeah.
3 books
Yeah.
instead of
cool.
2. Yeah.
And is
Just-
there a waiting list? Sorry.
Hey.
Is there a waiting list? Do you have stock available?
There's a little stock available right now. So what I did when I first released them was I had quite a big stock, and then orders came through. So now I was actually saying to Brian earlier, like I've been so quiet with my books because I've been doing all the other 100 things that I've been doing. So I haven't been focused on getting the stock up, but if you are interested, the stock can become available.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's my books.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want me to read some poems from it. Or...
Okay, so before you do that, there's one question that I want to ask you, right? So like, I'm assuming, based on the description that you've given us about your books, or well, the high level, basically synopsis.
Yeah.
You must have become really vulnerable and very open as well
Yeah.
about your experiences. Don't you? I don't love the word fear, but I'm gonna use it for the sake of making a point. Don't you fear that like someone as bad as Maurice might actually buy the book, study you, and then put a sword on your back? Because that's what we do as guys. Well, let me not say as guys, but like the general population, when it comes to males, is that they like to establish a woman's vulnerability and exploit it.
Yeah. I've never really thought of that. I don't know. I don't think I fear that, only because I feel like I know myself well not to fall for those tactics. Because I've been that vulnerable, and because I've explored. And look, I'm not also 100% perfect in my journey with myself still. But for me, when I become vulnerable, it's back to the thing I was saying. It's not for myself. Like if I can connect with someone and make them see things differently and help them heal and help them see differently. Like that's my
Aim and
goal.
objective,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think I've ever thought of that, or like even now when I'm thinking about it, I don't think that's something I'm really necessarily afraid of.
Because it sounds like more of a teaching than well, it obviously would reveal things, but I think by the way you've explained it, it sounds more of
It's
a
lessons.
life lesson for people to actually
lessons,
then
yeah.
maybe alter things or help them go through those things
Yeah.
better, because I mean a lot of those type of things causes major problems. So people go into substance abuse after those
Yeah.
type of things, and like feeling
Yes.
the worth against self-worth, people feel
Yes,
depressed
exactly
and all
that,
that, and
yeah.
so people don't come back from that.
Yeah.
So maybe helping people understand that okay, it's normal for these
Yeah.
things to happen, and this is
There's
possibly
alternative ways
to
to.
deal
I mean,
with
even
it.
in the introduction of, I have like a writer's note where, and I say that like this is my journey, and my only prayer is that it brings you the same hope that I discovered. You know, so that's like my intention with these books as well. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've approached the closing end, which is very sad.
Yeah.
And you may well recite the poem for us.
Which books
Just
or
yeah.
It could be top of your head, or like just that one poet that you'd love to.
Even
recite for us.
a short quote or something
I don't
that's
have
really
I
special.
don't have short performance poetry. That's why I'm gonna do a whole set for you if you're gonna ask me to perform a piece.
Okay.
Although I
go for it.
could,
I
like a
think the
4
people,
minute.
they
piece. How
just
much?
trying
How
to-
long do we have?
4
Just-
minutes is sufficient. Yeah, that's
Alright.
fine.
Okay. I'm gonna share one of my favorite pieces titled "Dear Black Child." I'm gonna give context to this piece. I wrote this piece in 2000 and where are we? 2017. And it was birthed from, I think, my history of how I grew up, colored but black, but not, but yes, but so like the confusion of identity. And I just imagined what the next generation would feel like, being mixed race and finding their footing in themselves and finding their self-identity. So this one's called Dear Black Child.
Wow.
I'm gonna get into my performance mode now.
All right. All eyes on you.
Sometimes you will wonder if you were born with the wrong skin color. Lost between melanin shades and firelit pigmentation, there is no translation for the color of your skin. So you wear your breath like a target, and breathing is hard. It scars your lungs when you'd rather be suffocating, but keep breathing, because the existence of trees depends on your breath. But there is an immense amount of mourning that comes with planting gardens in your rib cage, hoping you could love until it aches, where the red in your veins is just like everybody else's. So you wish you could just peel it off. I never understood it, how rainbows got along. But we never seem to forget the rain. And you will get tired of being judged by the way your hair curls into that not quite pin straight enough, and how your accent is between, and I almost had it, and I swear to God I'm trying. There will be days where you'll forget how to breathe, where the aching underneath your lungs is just too much to exhale. But on those days, remember that it was not your fault. That in between my rib cages, I carried martyred portions of their words for you, that my spine became a victim to the gunpowder that lies underneath their tongues. So when you ask me one day if I think you're beautiful, I will tell you no, because it doesn't matter what I think. But can't you see that you are? And that there are nights that I lay awake imagining how it is the shade of your heart that intersects my soul. Awaken, little one. Be proud of the textures that lie underneath your eyelids. See past the black and white, because all you have is us. A mixture of lullabies and rock songs, and a night we forgot how to look at watches because time could never tell us who we are. And you will be called a mess, but it's beautiful. Just like 4-year-olds who drew the sun as if it's something that doesn't burn, but we still call it beautiful. Like how the insides of your hands will be lighter than the rest of you, and you'll wonder why that is. Little one, this is just a sign to show them that we had to loosen our grips because we were meant to be our own saviors. You will have to learn to keep your feelings sedated because it gets loud sometimes. their voices in your head, covered in plastic remarks about how you don't belong except when it's nighttime because at least no one can see you. So smile. That is the only way to show them your existence is more than sticks and stones, and that your bones have marrows just like theirs. And one day, they will be lighting fires with your sweat because you had to work just a little harder to shine. That was Dear Black Child.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was
Seems like you
awesome.
pull a lot from science and biology. Eh? Not only the thing about that, but even the books, the titles, especially the first two, time and light. It's that correlation between time, light, and what speed, light, and time.
Oh, yes, the
E
whole
equal
sign.
to MC
Yes.
squared.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now this is wow. I'm pulling a lot of biology and science from there. You dig a lot from all parts of
All
life.
aspects,
That's really dope.
Yes.
That was really special, and it also obviously, as you've mentioned, what it was about, but
Mhm.
without you explaining it, just going through the poem, it's clear as day,
Mhm.
you know, and it's so
Thought-provoking as well.
Oh, it's
Thank
it's
you.
amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
Everything.
Because we always
Thank
speak
you.
It's
about
history
it
in the
from
making.
exactly. We always speak about it. You know, the differences that we see with how people are being treated and how people were treated and how people are currently being treated and all those type of things. And this kind of paints this awesome picture, and it's amazing. I can't talk too much
Thank
enough
you. I
about
actually
it. Yeah.
shot a visual to this piece, so it
Okay.
is on my YouTube channel. I have a whole poetry in motion on this piece that depicts
Definitely
the
will
story.
be checking
so.
that out. Yeah. And
Yeah.
just one more thing before I see X
This one
Men.
wants to keep
Yeah. Like how's the support being like from a country as a whole? Like, do you feel that there's enough space for the different artists that we have, and especially you as a performance artist, where you're not focused on one thing? Do you feel that there is opportunities for growth for for people to actually become successful? And when I'm saying that,
Yeah.
just getting paid and all those type of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do feel like, firstly, the entertainment industry as a whole has a lot of growing to do in terms of success. And I think poetry right now is growing a lot in the country. I think it's becoming way more recognized. I don't know if you know Spugazi Jonas. She's a Cape Town based poet, and she's doing amazing work with like big brands now. Like I forgot who, I think it was South African, the tourism actually commissioned her to write a piece. So she's actually doing poetry on these big platforms. And I think there's room for that, but I feel like it's not enough for everyone yet.
yeah.
But it's so powerful to see people paving the way for the possibility, because now brands are saying poetry is also, a way that we can use. It's not just music that we can use. There's also poetry. But also as a whole, just the dance industry, that industry, I think there's opportunity, but there's not success, if I want to put it that way. Let me leave it there.
All right.
Yeah.
Grace, it's been an honor to host you, and truly, like I said, this is history in the making. And thank you very much for coming here and stamping your authority. Hopefully, this will actually perpetuate to greater masses, because it's
I receive.
fucking awesome.
Yeah,
I receive.
I concur.
Thank you.
That was special. Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed this so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.